Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. This time I saw Jolt. It's a 2021 action comedy film directed by Tanya Wexler, and it stars Kate Beckinsale, Bobby Cannavale, Jai Courtney, Laverne Cox, Susan Sarandon, and Stanley Tucci. In this film, a bouncer with anger management problems goes on a with an anger management problem goes on a furious and resentful rampage after the murder of a friend. So, what did I think of Jolt? I've seen this film a few times and I really really enjoy it. I do have some issues that I am going to get to, but overall it is a very fast, very enjoyable film that's had some unfair judgment in places, but I'll get to that. Let me get to the cast. Kate Beckinsale plays Lindy. She's got this disorder that causes her, like, like that thing in your head that tells you that you want to beat somebody up, but it tells you shouldn't and then you don't. She doesn't have that. She basically, when she gets angry, she lashes out violently. Intermittent explosive disorder, I think is what they call it, which kind of funny, like IED, explosive. Um, but Kate Beckinsale plays this character very well. She seems fit enough to do the stunts. She's been in plenty of action movies before, like the Underworld series, so casting her is not a bad decision at all. Um, but yeah, I really liked her here. She did good with the comedy. Bobby Cannavale plays Detective Vickers. He does a good job in this role. Uh, again, it's mostly Kate Beckinsale's movie, but you have some solid supporting from him. Um, Jai Courtney plays Justin. He's someone that she's trying to date. I think he does a good job. He usually annoys the shit out of me. Laverne Cox was good as Detective Nevin. Um, it took me until very recently to discover that Laverne Cox is transgender, which interesting. I mean, now knowing it, it's kind of you can kind of tell voice-wise, but for the most part, I'm very happy that they were like, okay, let's get a trans actress to play a woman instead of just having them play trans women, which I think is kind of demeaning. But it's nice to see a bit of a change here. She's very funny. She has some weird line readings. There's a bit where she says, "Don't breathe, don't fucking fart," which sounds really weird, but other than that, she's pretty funny, and I liked her addition to the movie. Um, Susan Sarandon plays Woman with No Name. She's basically somebody from Lindy's past that had to do with her disorder training and everything. She's barely in the movie. It was still cool to see her there. And Stanley Tucci is Dr. Ivan Munchin, who's basically made this device for Lindy to use to stop her impulses by sending an electric shock through her body. I always like Stanley Tucci. He does a good job. He's funny. That's one thing I do want to give this movie. This movie is an action comedy that does some pretty solid things with the action and some pretty good things with the comedy. It's not just too far one way or the other. Because there are action comedies that go way too far into the comedy side, and there's some that are just like action movies with a quip every so often, which I really wouldn't consider a comedy. But this one takes what could have been a very serious premise, a revenge movie about a woman with a disorder that causes her to basically lash out at everybody, and she uses it to plot her revenge. And overall, again, I do really enjoy this film. I think Kate Beckinsale was a great pick for the lead. I think she does great work, along with pretty much all of the cast. Again, Laverne Cox has a couple moments where she's a bit wonky, but for the most part, I think she works. Um, Frickin' like I do have issues with the film, and I'll get to that, but I do want to talk about one thing. The constant stream of reviewers comparing every movie to everything else. a review on Letterboxd that says Crank plus Shoot 'em Up plus Atomic Blonde equals Jolt. I have seen all three of those movies, so I'm going to comment on that real quick. Crank, I mean, I'd kind of understand it if this person said Crank 2, because Crank 2 High Voltage, he literally has to shock himself in order to keep his heart beating. But that's not even what's happening here. She's shocking herself to keep herself from, like, lashing out. So it's a different usage. It's just the similarity of shocking. But even in the first Crank, it's not that, it's adrenaline. He's, like, injecting adrenaline and doing things to keep his adrenaline pumping so that he keeps living. Shoot 'em up. She never uses a gun in the movie. So, no. I guess just the over-the-topness of some of the action scenes, maybe, but that's not a good... Like, I don't understand these people. It's like the same people that compare every movie to Jaws. They're like, what Into the Grizzly Maze did for... Into the Grizzly Maze did for bears what Jaws did to the ocean. Like, I hate shit like that. That's what this person's doing. And Shoot 'em Up, like, I don't understand at all how this is any bit similar to Shoot 'em Up. Like, Shoot 'em Up was, like, I guess action comedy, you could call it that, but is it... I guess it's just because of the one scene where she throws the baby to the cop, but that's it. Like, I really struggle to see any resemblance to them, and I just watched Shoot 'em Up and Atomic Blonde. And Atomic Blonde, the main character's blonde. It's a female starring action movie. So is Kate, so is Gunpowder Milkshake, so is Long Kiss Goodnight, so is G.I. Jane. Like, I don't... This isn't a spy movie also. Like, this person on... I'm not going to say your name because I'm not a prick, but, like, when you go on to the Jolt Letterboxd, you can see it. I don't understand these people. They have to compare every movie to every other movie. Like, I feel like these people would be so little fun at parties. You walk up to them and you're like, "Oh, have you seen Nobody? Oh yeah, it's that movie that's like John Wick. Oh, have you seen Atomic Blonde? Oh, it's that movie that's like John Wick. Oh, have you seen Shoot 'em Up? It's like John Wick, but before John Wick happened." Because everybody's obsessed with John Wick, as if it's one of the best action movies ever, which, even though I like most of them, they aren't. But yeah, moving on. A lot of people have compared the movie to Crank. It really has nothing to do with Crank at all. Crank 2, barely. It deals with electricity, sure, and it's an action movie. But no, this is a mostly pretty original premise. It's pretty... One big thing I can give this film, it is fucking insanely fast-paced. Now, for a revenge movie, some people would want more of, like, a slower, like, pacing out the action scenes a bit more, which this one, I think, paces the action scenes out quite well. But more, like, contemplation or more scenes with the person that the main character is going to get revenge on about. And there's a reason why there's not as much, but here it makes sense. I thought there was enough to make me be like, "Oh, it sucks, this character's dead." And what they do with that is actually pretty interesting. Some people might think it's a bit weird, but I think it works for the most part. The film, basically, without credits, without the end credits, is about 81 or 82 minutes. And I think that's perfect for this, like, plot. Because this film, I will admit, does not have a lot of plot. The plot is kind of thin. It's very much like, you have this concept, you have a character that's going to get revenge, there you go. It's not like this a multi-layered, multifaceted plot, and I'm not saying that's a thing against it, because simplicity can very much be used in your favor, and I think this film does do that. Because, again, you have a super fast pace, you have Kate Beckinsale, who is a very likable lead, even though she's a kind of a crazy person. Some and the action. I want to talk about the action. There's some pretty memorable action here, actually. The two main set pieces I'd say are like the most memorable are the chase through the hospital, which is done to look like it's all in one take. Um, and I did really like that. I thought it looked really cool. Or in like a bunch of long takes, but it's still a fun sequence. This isn't a movie where you're gonna see a bunch of people get shot, by the way. So if you're looking for that, also again, the person who compared it to Shoot 'Em Up, no, there's plenty of other movies with babies in them that are like thrown to somebody, hard boiled. But no, there's the chase between her and the female cop Vickers, or not Vickers, Nevin. That was fun, and the kind of big fight scene with her and a bunch of the other guards in the building near the end. Now, one thing I will slag off that one for, there's a very obvious stunt double there because the scene at first starts with the camera in front of her and then you see the guys come out and then there's a cut to behind her head and most of the fight scene is camera behind her head, her punching guys. And I don't know for sure if that's a stunt double, but that's a very obvious cut that you'd make for if you're trying to hide that there's a stunt double. It's not like I see the stunt double's face or anything during the fight, and again, it's a well choreographed enough fight, but I mean, the movie's not going for like an insane martial arts like Scott Adkins type thing, but I think it works well enough. I just wish they wouldn't have made such an obvious cut. Um, but yeah, the action is still very fun, very lively. There's a fight between her and three guys at one point that I thought was pretty fun, even though the editing is a bit choppy there. That if there's one thing I can slag off the action for, there's some obvious editing things that are weird, but overall it's still enjoyable. And the comedy does liven up what could have been a very generic, very like by the numbers movie, and it's nice to see a kind of comedic edge to a revenge movie. You don't get that often, and revenge movies can become very depressing if you don't have some way to break up the tension. Um, but yeah, like you also. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a moment. Got to catch up with myself. Um, I will say a few issues I have with the film. I already talked about the like stunt double issue. Um, there's for the most part the dialogue is very funny, but this film was very close to leaning a bit too hard into the female empowerment angle. I've noticed this with a lot of action movies where they'd have basically all of the female characters be good guys and almost all the male characters being bad guys. Now, and then they'd have like one or two that are nice, or somebody who you think is nice and that turns out to be an asshole. This kind of leads into that. I will say the film is at least well made enough and well written enough in other places that it distracted me from it a bit, but it's still a bit annoying. There are some lines, uh, like there's a bit where a villain asks the main character, "What's the blood on your shirt?" or "Is it that time of the month?" And I was like, that wasn't needed. That just felt so unnecessary. Like it wasn't even funny. There's characters there's like a female character who's a hacker that like one of the guys tries to talk and she's like, "Did your mouth just fart?" Like I'm not a fan of that writing, and apparently Tanya Wexler, the director, does do that kind of writing kind of often. So I I'm glad it didn't get much further than that, but it still was a bit annoying at times. Um there are times that it works. There is a funny part with Laverne Cox talking to Bobby Cannavale and talking about like you always like the grieving widow types, and that was fun. And there's plenty of funny lines in this film, but it did annoy me a bit, and also the villains. I'm not gonna give away who the villains turn out to be, but or who the villains are, but I will say they work enough as villains. You don't have a lot of build up for them. Again, it's a super short movie, and that's one of the kind of pitfalls of having a super fast paced, really short movie like this. But they worked, but they were a bit too over the top. Some of their dialogue, uh, especially near the end, was kind of rough. And if there's one thing I can say about it, it's that it was a bit much. But overall, I do still recommend this film. I got this 4K Blu-ray from Germany for one reason, for the interviews, because I remembered really enjoying this. I know it's on Amazon Prime, but I think the only way to get the interviews is to get the 4K Blu-ray. This looks gorgeous in 4K. It's a very good-looking film. Oh my god, I almost forgot. The score. The score is a massive plus to this film. Dominic Lewis, uh, you are a talented motherfucker. It's a very like I guess this kind of goes with the female empowerment theme of kind of the theme of the film, but it works. There's like this like vocalizing female thing and like this orchestral like kind of EDM style to it, but it works. It fits with the film, and I really do enjoy it to the point where I have some of the tracks on my music playlist, like whenever I'm running or exercising or anything like that. And yeah, I did really enjoy that. So again, a big plus to it. But overall, a very fun movie, very entertaining, good performances, funny comedy, fun action, and yeah, all around a good time. But yeah, that was my review of Jolt. If you've seen the film, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, put them down there as well. And movie reviewer next door, out.